back, everyone. So throughout today, we heard a lot about improving price performance through the cloud with our AWS Silicon innovation. We have with us right now Roshni Perry to dive a little bit deeper into this topic. Roshni, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. And thanks for having me, Martin and Art. My name is Roshni. I lead compute business development for US West and SMB. So my team basically helps customers modernize their applications and infrastructure using all the silicon innovation we talked about and things like containers, serverless, and our hybrid offerings.
Awesome. Can you summarize some of these innovations and how we help customers really cost optimize?
Yeah, sure. So let's back up a bit. When we launched AWS 16 years ago, the fundamental idea was to offer web services at a price, performance, and scale that was not possible before. And our customers could use infrastructure services like compute and storage, pay-as-you-go, which help them save money, also improve their infrastructure efficiency. And our silicon innovation is basically the next step in this journey. Throughout the day, you heard Dave, Anthony, Nafa, and other speakers talk about Nitro and Graviton and Inferentia and Trainium. So as Dave mentioned, the Nitro system is basically the foundation of our hardware-accelerated hypervisor. And before Nitro, 30% of our CPU resources were used for the management of the cloud system. Offloading this to the hardware allowed us to free up our resources for our customers. So this basically enabled us to practically direct all of the compute and memory resources of the host hardware to our customer instances.
Because the hypervisor and management wasn't consumed by the core instance anymore, it's offloaded now.
Exactly.
And it allows us to essentially be more efficient in our delivery mechanism to customers, right? So this is how we're able to help continue with our cost savings, which we'll talk about a little bit more here, right?
Yeah.
And this is incredible. I think we've talked about this innovation quite a few times today, but I think it's hard to understate this innovation and what it's done for AWS, but what it's enabled us to do for customers as well. I think is the primary thing here.
Yeah, exactly. And you heard Amit talk about the Nitro cards and Nitro SSD, right? So Nitro cards, we started offering them along the way to enable high-speed networking, high-speed EBS, as well as provide I/O acceleration. Some of my customers have seen up to 50% improvement in their TCO by using Nitro-based instances.
Yeah. And so maybe you want to talk a little bit about some of the goals about our production of silicon, and we're going to get into how customers can use our silicon to save dollars as well and be more efficient.
Yeah, sure. So our goal with custom silicon is to make sure that customers get the best price performance in the cloud, and we designed Graviton with this in mind, right? So Graviton 2 instances offer 40% better performance compared to other comparable x86 instances. Price performance. Yeah. And Stephanie and Arthur talked about this before. Graviton 3 offers 25% better price than Graviton 2 instances. Not only this, but
better performance than Graviton 2.
That's right.
Yeah. So still very good price performance, 25% better overall performance than Graviton 2.
Yeah. So not only that, right? It offers 3x better ML performance, 2x better crypto performance, and 2x better floating point performance as well. So it's not just that. It's also the first server in our AWS fleet. In fact, the first in the cloud and the only in the cloud to support DDR5 memory, which is 50% faster than DDR4's maximum data rate. And now, we heard Stephanie and Amit talk about this in terms of sustainability. Graviton 3 processors, just like Graviton 2, are more energy efficient. And Graviton 3 instances consumes up to 60% less energy for the same performance than comparable EC2 instances as well.
Yeah, it's making a huge impact in terms of our reducing carbon footprint, not just for us, but for all of our customers as well.
Our end customers as well.
Even if you think beyond carbon footprint, we can think about just cost as well. And so there's a cost savings for customers, and there's also an efficiency with Graviton. Right. And also we're going to get into here talking a little bit about that same savings with Inferentia as we've designed that, right? I mean, this is about developing this silicon to meet customer needs. And we talked earlier today as well about making sure we respond to customer feedback. And that's what we've answered here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So like you said, when we launched Inferentia in 2019, our goal was to make ML more affordable and accessible in the cloud. So Inf1 instances based on Inferentia chips are purpose-built to offer best price performance for inferencing in the cloud. Inf1 offers up to 2x better throughput and up to 70% lower cost per inference than comparable current generation GPU-based instances. And the cost of inference, which is about 90% of ML inferencing infrastructure cost, right? So, but there is also the cost of training, and that's when we are working on Trainium, and Ron talked about Trainium a bit.
Sorry, just wanted to, you were talking about the savings versus GPU as well. The other thing about the Trainium and Inferentia stuff is when you work at a purpose-built piece of silicon, you're not leaving resources, if you will, on the table, or I think that's an easy term to understand it. You are more efficiently using something. So the resources that you deploy are used better and efficiently, and you get a result faster as well. And you're not powering something on that a portion of it is sitting there with power being underutilized, right? It helps increase the efficiency for a customer in getting a response as well.
Yeah, you can improve your overall infrastructure efficiency with Inferentia and Trainium.
Right.
Yeah. So throughout the day, we've talked a lot about our driven silicon innovations from Nitro to Graviton to Inferentia, Trainium, and Nitro SSDs. But I think for me and for a lot of our customers, nothing tells a story better than customers telling about the successes, talking about the successes that they've had. Can you tell us about some of the tested use cases where customers were able to significantly save cost and improve performance with our AWS Silicon?
Sure. So today we have about more than 500 instances, in our fleet. So majority are built off the Nitro system. In fact, all of the current generation instances are built on the Nitro system. So basically with Nitro, I think Dave talked about this, we were able to significantly accelerate our pace of innovation. So in a few years, we ramped up from 70 instances to over 500 instances. So what that means is our customers can more efficiently use our infrastructure, and they have better control over their price performance. So in terms of the tried and tested use cases, like you asked, you can literally take advantage of the platform for any workload, from a simple web application to build, train, and deploy ML model for something like computer vision.
Yeah, if you think about 500 instances, that's a huge amount. And really, it's all about offering customers choice to optimize it the way that they want, whether getting the best performance, lowering their cost, or running specific workloads. So it's really about just offering customers choice to do what they need to run workloads for their businesses.
Right, and you heard from Splunk today, right? How they optimize their workloads for indexing and searching event data on AWS using Nitro SSDs and Graviton-based instances. And their workload is CPU bound, and it benefits from the high capacity, low latency SSD storage, essentially.
It's a great example of a customer combining both the SSD storage along with the compute. And customers, I think when we've talked multiple times about the total number of instances that are out there. All three of us have, and multiple times talked about that. But it's all of this is not. It's to help. It helps customers be more efficient as well. The choice, you have kind of a ratio of memory to compute that is optimal for the workload that you're doing. So view these as I view them as like targeted. Each of these is like targeted instances that when we talk about the workload, like what are your guardrails that are inflexible, and start there, and that starts narrowing down that efficiency, and we will help guide that in there. So maybe we talk through some of the typical use cases and price performance. How about we start with Graviton?
Yeah, so when we look at our Graviton portfolio, right? So we have Graviton 2 based instances like general purpose burstable T4G, general purpose M6G, compute optimized C6G, memory optimized X2G, DR2G, and they can be used for a broad spectrum of workloads. Now, Graviton 3, which is available through our C7G instances, they are suitable for workloads that require more compute performance, like analytics or video encoding or CPU-based machine learning or even high-performance computing. So a great example, I think Stephanie mentioned this as well, Nextroll
Yeah,
is one of the
she did.
examples that she shared. It's one of the customers my team works with, and they tested Graviton 3-based C7G instances and found that it's ideal for workloads like ad servers and Elasticache clusters. They found that it's 40% better in terms of latency, and it serves 15% more requests compared to C6G instances.
These improvements are pretty significant here. I think another customer is that Arthur in the same talk mentioned was on Formula One. Maybe you can expand a little on that.
Formula One, they run their computational fluid dynamics, CFD simulations. They used to run it on C6GN. And when they tested it simultaneously on C7G, they found that it is 40% faster than C6GN instances.
So when customers think of Graviton, they often think about Amazon EC2, which of course Graviton's offered in Amazon EC2. But can you also talk about managed services as well, and just customers adopting Graviton through managed services?
Great question, because a lot of my customers have started their Graviton journey with managed services like RDS, Aurora, Elasticache, and EMR. Now, as customers look to adopt our Graviton 2 or Graviton 3-based instances, their first concern is the level of effort required to get started, right? So we've really made it easy to get started. We talked about the Fast Start program. We also have the free trial. I think Stephanie mentioned it as well.
Great way to get started.
Yeah.
For free.
Right.
For free, 750 hours per month, right, on T4G Small. Yeah. So I read it in the comments before that you can power a business, entire business, for a month with.
A lot of startups do.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
It's a great way to show customers how easy it is. This, I think, to me also exhibits how confident we are with the Graviton processor. And that's I think through Stephanie and Arthur's earlier discussion, and now I think a call to action for everybody is to take a look at Graviton, whether it's through the Fast Start program or if you want to use the Graviton Ready if you're looking to leverage a partner, is a really phenomenal way to get started. And we have a lot of resources out there. And I think we've talked about customers moving in hours and weeks here. But I think our challenge to everybody out there is just trying to migrate in as little as 4 days and have some of your team work on it.
Yeah, I think the key is just to get started, right? You have this free trial, so it's like virtually no cost, and there's a lot to gain. 40% better price performance.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly right. The Fast Start program. So if the free trial or the Fast Start isn't what you're looking for, you can even apply for credits. That's also an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wanted to move on to the machine learning side.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So on the ML side, a lot of my customers are turning to deep learning capabilities to make their applications smarter with voice recognition, NLP, search recommendations, et cetera, right? So they need really high performance and cost-effective infrastructure to do this. So we invested in Inferentia and Trainium because of this feedback from all of our customers. So Inferentia is purpose-built for inferencing, and it constitutes, like I said, 90% of the infrastructure cost, right? Airbnb saw 2x improvement in their throughput just out of the box for NLP models supporting their chatbot application. And this is compared to other comparable GPU-based instances. Autodesk saw 4.95x higher throughput over G4DN for their natural language understanding NLU models, right? And Ron talked about Trainium as well. TRN1 instances are now available in preview, and they're perfect for ML training on the cloud.
Yeah, just a couple of things to mention here is that it's not just about the performance gains that these customers are seeing, but it's really just with a few lines of code. So really easy to adopt these instances.
Yep.
So do you have any guidance for customers who are sitting out there? We've talked a lot about the performance. We've talked a lot about the instances as well and the raw numbers. Do you have any advice for customers how to optimize cost and performance when trying to use these instances, whether that's Nitro, Trainium, or Graviton?
Yeah, and a lot of times I get the question, is it one versus the other?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, so it's not one versus the other. It's not price versus performance. So when you think about cost optimization, you usually think about it as either or. Sometimes you think that in order to meet your performance goal, you assume that you need to spin up more and more instances, same with your cost requirements, right? If you have budget constraints, you might think that you need to make trade-offs on performance,
Right.
but that's absolutely not the case. You can meet your performance goal at the lower cost. You just have to select the optimal instances to make sure that you're getting the maximum from your application on EC2 and AWS, right? Oftentimes, when you're picking the optimal instance for your application, you're also picking the efficient way to operate in the cloud. So it's all about understanding your options, your price options, your instance options, as well as your optimization options. So companies like Epic Games, Formula One, and DirecTV have all reduced their costs while at the same time improving their performance. And we talked about Epic. I think Arthur and Stephanie talked about it, right? So they cannot compromise on their performance. So it's not about compromising performance at all.
And another great example that we talked about earlier was when Liz Fong Jones was talking about the Honeycomb's explosion in usage of 10x, and she said multiple times that the customers and the usage is exploding by 10x, but that doesn't mean the budget to handle this is also exploded by 10x, yes. Right?
Right.
So by optimizing in the cloud and leveraging, and that in Liz's case, leveraging the Graviton processors, they've been able to continue to save and deliver for their customers and get more performance, right? So to your point, it's how to do that selection. And that's right. Something maybe we can talk about how customers do that, Roshni.
Yeah, so first I would encourage everyone to familiarize yourself with the instance types and categories. You don't have to memorize anything.
No.
You just need to understand the basic criteria, memory optimized, storage optimized, and all the categories that we have. And focus on using EC2 efficiently, but you don't have to completely optimize from the get-go. There are many different tools that we offer, like Compute Optimizer, where you can optimize after the fact once you benchmark your performance. You can also use our cost models like Spot and savings plans to optimize your cost on AWS. And I would encourage everyone to be flexible. Oftentimes when one instance works for you, I would assume that another, like for example, if M6G is going to work for you, C6G might also work for you. So just make sure that you benchmark both of those. And then work backwards from your application or workload requirements, right? If you have hard requirements on storage or networking or memory or accelerator, do you need GPUs or not? So work backwards from that. And don't be afraid of multi-architecture, right? So adding multi-arch support to your tools and scripts basically enables you to get the flexibility and pick the best instance in terms of price performance.
Yeah,
so
I think sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, I think flexibility is just the key here, right? In order to get the best cost, the performance, and leverage here. Martin.
So, Roshni, you mentioned pricing options like Spot and cost optimization options like Compute Optimizers. Can you expand on these and really share how to take advantage of cost optimization tools to help you on AWS Silicon? Yeah,
we have a suite of different tools and capabilities, right, our customers can use. So EC2 Instance Discovery, it's basically a console and a CLI-based tool where you can specify hardware requirements, and it'll give you a list of comparable instances to review across price, location, and performance. Instance Selector, a CLI tool with Go library, does something similar, and it will give you matching instance types based on CPU memory and network performance as well. Now, purchase options, I mentioned about this before. If you have a persistent workload like a database, and if you can commit to a certain dollar amount per hour, use savings plans. If you have a flexible and a fault-tolerant workload, take advantage of our Spot pricing model, right? And once you get to a certain stage, once you have spun up some instances, you have a fleet of instances, you can take advantage of EC2 auto-scaling essentially to mix and match instances, to do fleet management, and a lot of different things, right? In fact, you can configure your ASGs or auto-scaling groups to use both Graviton 2 and x86-based instances in the same auto-scaling group by working with your armies.
Wow, this is a lot of excellent information about how to optimize performance in the cloud here. We've discussed so many different things. And I just want to thank you, Roshni, for coming out today. Are there any other key things that we haven't managed to
Yeah.
cover that we should just let people sit
Yeah,
with?
I briefly want to touch upon Compute Optimizer as well, because it recently launched a really cool feature where it will help you find the right workload with the biggest return for smallest migration effort to Graviton. So it will give you a migration effort rating based on from low to high, and it reflects the level of effort that is needed to move the workload from the current instance type to a Graviton-based instance. So information like what kind of workload is it, and other parameters will help Compute Optimizer give you a good migration score or a more suitable migration score. So I would definitely urge everyone to look at that and see what kind of migration score you're getting for different instances, and benchmark your current performance using Compute Optimizer. In addition to that, there are several resources available to optimize your cost, performance, and scale using our silicon innovation. So check it out.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Roshni, for joining us today. We've learned quite a lot. Understand your workload characteristics, be flexible, and check out Compute Optimizer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And for Roshni here, we've had a lot of great information here. So we're going to have Jeff Barr, who's our chief evangelist, kind of come up here afterward and give us a summary of some of the stuff that we've learned today, and some of the information you can take with you. And thanks again for joining Martin and I, and thanks Roshni for joining us as well.
Thank you both, and thank you everyone for joining.